Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, Israel begins flooding Hamas's tunnel network in Gaza as it keeps up its military offensive against the terrorist group. And amid those military operations, President Joe Biden warns Israel it could lose global support over what he calls Israel's indiscriminate bombing in Gaza. But Israeli leaders are pushing ahead. We're going to bring you the story from Jerusalem. Why the Hamas attack on Israel was only the first part of a longer-range plan to eliminate the Jewish state, because Iranian leaders believe Israel must be wiped out before return of major Islamic figure. And with so many Israelis being called up to serve in the war in Gaza, that's led to a lack of people available to harvest Israeli crops. We're going to show you how Christians have traveled from around the world to lend a helping hand. All those stories and hope for Americans looking to lose weight today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with Israel's war to eliminate Hamas. As expected, the Israeli military has begun flooding Hamas's tunnel system under Gaza. And as Israel pushes ahead, President Joe Biden is warning they may be starting to lose global support because of what he calls indiscriminate bombing in Gaza. But as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, Israeli leaders seem determined to finish its war to defeat Hamas despite world opinion.
President Biden called for a change in Israel's current government, claiming it's, quote, making it very difficult for Prime Minister Netanyahu to move. While pledging continued military assistance to Israel, he criticized what he called indiscriminate bombing of Gaza and added, they have to be careful. The whole world's public opinion can shift overnight. We can't let that happen. There's also disagreement about what happens in Gaza after the war. In a statement thanking the U.S. for its support, Netanyahu repeated his opposition to the administration's stance on the Palestinian Authority ruling the territory.
I want to clarify my position. I will not let Israel repeat the Oslo mistake. I will not allow that after the great sacrifice of our citizens and fighters, we bring into Gaza those who teach terrorism, support terrorism, finance terrorism. Gaza will be neither Hamastan nor Fatahstan.
Tuesday, the UN General Assembly voted for an immediate ceasefire. Israeli Ambassador Gilad Erdan blasted the vote.
No piece of paper, especially one that is adopted by a biased, politicized majority, will prevent Israel from defending itself against those that seek our destruction. Israel is fighting a war for her future. There is not a single member state here, that would act differently in a similar situation.
A Wall Street Journal poll showed a majority of Americans support Israel in its fight against Hamas. 55% said Israel is taking the military action needed to defend itself and prevent another attack by Hamas, while only 25% said Israel's military action is disproportionate and going too far. Meanwhile, in Gaza, 8 Israeli soldiers died in the fighting on Tuesday. While the Wall Street Journal is reporting the IDF has started pumping seawater into Hamas's tunnels to destroy one of its main military assets and drive out top leaders.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. Chris, let's talk about the flooding operation. Tell us more about how it's going to work and what all Israel hopes to accomplish.
Well, Efrem, it's one way they want to destroy the tunnels, and it's doing what it just says, flooding from the Mediterranean all the hundreds of miles of tunnels that Hamas has dug underneath Gaza City, Khan Yunis, many of these Islamic strongholds. They've destroyed hundreds of these tunnels already, but this could potentially accelerate that process. And what it would do is bring Hamas terrorists above the ground. You know, they have, urban warfare is probably one of the hardest fights for any troops, regardless if they're Israeli or U.S. or whatever nationality. But when you add the tunnels, it takes fighting to a whole new level and makes it very dangerous. So the idea is to help neutralize this advantage of Hamas for the IDF. But there are objections and concerns. Will this seawater affect the drinking water of Gaza? What about the hostages? If they're in the tunnels, could they potentially harm them or put them in danger? However, the IDF chief of staff has said in the past that it's a good idea. So it seems like Israel's going to go ahead and do what they can, flood these tunnels to destroy this military advantage that Hamas has.
Chris, we're seeing disagreement between President Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the military offensive in Gaza and the potential loss of global support for Israel. President Biden calls it Israel's indiscriminate bombing. How is his statement being viewed there in Israel?
Well, Ephraim, I would say Israelis are behind total victory against Hamas. October 7th was a game changer here in Israel. They don't want Hamas on its border anymore. There's thousands of residents on the Gazan communities that won't go back. They're in different places around the country, some of them actually here in Jerusalem in different hotels. They won't go back unless it's safe. Now, Biden obviously is saying this for his own political considerations. There are progressive Democrats and other world leaders. They want a ceasefire, so he's getting that pressure from him. But Netanyahu has his own political considerations here. I don't believe he can leave the job unfinished. For many Israelis, this kind of transcends politics. More than 100 soldiers have died already. Israel is really like a family. So these losses ripple through the family. I'll give you one example. Ephraim, I went earlier today to a dry cleaner where I typically take my clothes. The manager's son is in Gaza. The owner's son is in Gaza. And they're all concerned about their safety. So really no one here in Israel is unaffected by this war. And I think that consideration is what Netanyahu and the war cabinet are taking into consideration.
The Jerusalem Post reports the head of the Israeli security agency sent a letter to the United Nations last month, basically asking the world not to interfere in Israel's actions against Hamas. Does that reflect the frustration of Israeli leaders about global opinion putting pressure on Israel?
Definitely. I mean, they see a double standard. You heard that in the comment that Gilad Erdan, the ambassador to the UN from here in Israel, they feel like there's one standard for the rest of the world, there's another one for Israel. You can take the fights that, say, the United States had in Mosul or Fallujah. They see that the war prosecuted by other nations has one standard, while Israel has another. In that letter, they're saying that what Israel's war did fits the charter, the UN charter, protect human rights that were violated on October 7th. So the IDF fights, as it says in the letter, according to international law, and even more stringent rules of engagement, and actually many times putting IDF soldiers at risk because of trying to protect civilians in Gaza. Also noted that Israel's men, women, and children, they're still held in captive. And they also want to protect from a regional war. So all those points were made in that letter, and they feel like the UN should be really fighting on Israel's side, not fighting Israel itself.
Chris, this week a New York Times article reports that Netanyahu's administration actually helped to prop up Hamas over the past several years. Of course, this raises the question, why? And will this be a political problem for Netanyahu after the war is over?
It could be, Ephraim. What Netanyahu did was allow money into Gaza from Qatar. Many people see it was sort of like hush money, so Gaza didn't explode, so they didn't have a crisis. It's actually been known here in Israel what was going on to pay salaries there inside Gaza. But obviously the money has been diverted to Hamas's military as a way of keeping the Gaza border quiet. But then October 7th happened, and this has changed the political atmosphere here in terms of that particular issue. For years, Ephraim, Israel had no appetite for a large-scale invasion after 2014. The Iron Dome kept the danger to a minimum because of all these rockets, and that money given to Hamas by Qatar and approved by the Israeli government actually helped keep that quiet.
We know that President Biden is pushing for a Palestinian state after the war ends. What's the reaction from political parties there in Israel as well as the public?
Well, I would say it's a non-starter, Ephraim. I don't think they're going to allow a Palestinian authority-led state there in Gaza. That's what Prime Minister Netanyahu said. I think there's really no appetite here in Israel for that kind of a day after there in the Gaza Strip.
All right, Chris Mitchell reporting for us from Jerusalem. Thank you so much. A reminder, we continue to pray for you as well as many others there in Jerusalem. Thank you so much. Turning now to another aspect of the war against Israel, the attack by Hamas was only the first phase of a long-term plan by Iran to wipe out the Jewish state. Iranian leaders believe Israel must be eliminated before the return of an Islamic figure known as the Mahdi. CBN's Dale Hurd has the story.
Iran has been indoctrinating its fighters throughout the Middle East in the belief that Israel is the biggest obstacle to the return of the Mahdi, and that there must be an apocalyptic war that destroys both Israel and Jews around the world. Islamic expert Raymond Ibrahim.
So the Mahdi, as an English speaker would pronounce it, it's really Mahdi, which basically means guided. So he's the guided one, or in Islamic understanding, he's the rightly guided one. And he takes on different guises depending on which sect of Islam you ask, Sunni or Shia.
Sunnis, the majority of the world's Muslims, believe the Mahdi has not yet been born.
The Prophet said, hadith is in Abu Dawood, a man shall come towards the end of times. His name will be my name, and the name of his father will be the name of my father, meaning Muhammad ibn Abdullah.
Shia Islam, which is dominated by Iran, teaches that the Mahdi is already alive and has been hiding for over 1,000 years. Brother Rashid, a former Muslim, hosts a Christian program for Muslims called Daring Questions.
The Shia Muslims, especially the 12er Shiaism, they believe that he is the 12th Imam, and he was born around 868. So he just disappeared. He's still alive until today. His age is 1155, if you want to. So he's still living somewhere, and one day he will show himself.
Muslims in Iran believe the Mahdi is hiding in this well in the Mosque of Jamkaran. Pilgrims peer down the well with flashlights, leave prayer requests for the Mahdi, and hope he will reappear. Muslims believe that when the Mahdi returns, he will be accompanied by Jesus, known in Islam as the Prophet Isa, to rid the world of evil. Iranian leaders have seized upon belief in the final battle before the Mahdi's return to motivate its military and allies to fight harder to destroy Israel.
And a lot of the Islamic schools or jihadists are being indoctrinated by Iranian propaganda in Mahdiism. And again, it always centers around Israel and attacking and destroying Israel.
Some believe in the next phase of its plan to wipe out Israel, Iran might initiate a multi-front attack through its heavily armed proxy armies in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Ibrahim and Brother Rashid say the doctrine of the Mahdi's return means that any attempts by Israel to make peace with the Muslim world will ultimately prove to be futile.
Israel is a threat to Muslims, to the Mahdi, to the coming of the Mahdi, so they have to be eliminated. There is no other solution.
So I don't think Israel could ever have permanent peace unless Islam were to completely change itself and become not Islam, to be something completely different.
And Ibrahim worries that Iran might be willing to use a nuclear weapon against Israel to ensure the return of the Mahdi. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Coming up, with so many Israelis called up to serve in Gaza, people aren't available to harvest this year's crops in southern Israel. So Christians have traveled to the Jewish state from around the world to help out. We're going to bring you the story when we come back.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
In southern Israel, Jewish communities stand empty and fields are filled with crops yet to be harvested. Hundreds of thousands of Israeli reserves are now serving on the front lines, so there's no one to do the work. That's why Christians from all over the world are coming to Israel to help. Paul Strand reports.
One major reason led 75 Christians from 10 different nations to visit Israel in the middle of a war, risking danger and paying high travel costs. They say it's to be the hands, feet, and hearts of firms' relief projects, which include cleaning up evacuated homes along the Gaza border and helping farmers in the field.
We have about 300 people serving in 5 different sites, helping to harvest vegetables, working in the agricultural space, and we're helping to repair and rebuild some bomb shelters, paint and clean to help these people that are about to return home.
Imagine taking all your vacation time and your vacation money and coming to a land at war just to help the people who live there.
This is a great time to come and show our love in practical ways and let them know that they are not alone. We Christians in other parts of the world are praying, and we feel so sorry. We feel their sadness.
It's a responsibility that you should take. We do need to take action. You can't just say, I'm standing with Israel and do nothing.
As the international volunteers are meeting Israelis, they're being asked, why have they come during a war?
And a lot of them are surprised that we would come now. And I think that's saying something, that we're not just coming to tour, but we're coming because we love you.
We're maybe 2 kilometers from the border, if that. And so people are here, and we're picking oranges and lemons and pomelos. Trees are overflowing. There's fruit falling on the ground. And so I would say the work is imperative. Produce in this area makes up 60 to 70% of our nation's produce.
I am 15 years old, and when I heard that I could actually come here and help with people who were affected by the war, I jumped at the chance.
The members of the community where the volunteers are working fled from the Hamas terrorists after October 7th.
I'm from Yavne, Israel, and I just finished my serving in the army. I think that the people of the road were really appreciated, that a Christian group of people from all over the world come here and just help them. I think it will maybe open their hearts too.
To see that non-Jews from countries they've never even heard of before are coming to serve and support during this time, it changes everything for them.
By the end of the day, homes are freshly painted, bomb shelters have makeovers, kitchens are spotless, and yards ready for the evacuees to come home. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Derot, near the Gaza border.
Back here at home, it's easy to overeat during the holiday season, but even apart from the holidays, obesity is a major problem for millions of Americans. Well, now there is hope in the form of groundbreaking drugs that can help people to lose the pounds and deal with major diseases. We're going to bring you the story after this. A new wave of prescription drugs are breaking ground by helping patients lose unwanted pounds, address type 2 diabetes, and reduce the risk of deadly heart problems. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson brings us the story.
Doctors view these prescription weight loss medications as game changers. You may have heard of Ozempic or Wegovy, and now there are Mounjaro and Zepbound. Studies show these drugs can help users lose an average of between 5 and 20% of their body weight, even if patients have had many unsuccessful attempts.
Because I've tried it for 25 years, and something is out there that can help.
Kelly Burns credits Zepbound for helping her lose nearly 100 pounds.
I get upset when I hear, people say, oh, well, diet. I see that all the time. Just go on a diet, exercise. Maybe you won't be so heavy. And that is not how it works. It's not how it works. Some people need help, like myself.
All 4 drugs target the body's hormones to increase the feeling of fullness, decrease hunger, and slow the GI tract. They're FDA approved to treat type 2 diabetes, obesity, or both. The drug company Novo Nordisk makes Ozempic and Wegovy, which contain the active ingredient semaglutide that targets one hormone. Eli Lilly's Mounjaro and Zepbound contain tirzepatide, which targets 2 hormones, and research suggests they lead to more dramatic weight loss. All 4 drugs are administered through weekly injections. Many patients pay over $1,000 a month out of pocket for the treatments. Despite the cost, desire is leading to drug shortages.
Fact of the matter is, there's a lot of factors that go into the conditions of overweight and obesity. It's a complex, chronic condition. It's not as simple as eating less and moving more, so they do have a major role. But insurance does not oftentimes cover them. They're incredibly expensive, and they have to be managed by someone who's familiar with this class of medications.
Like all medications, these carry some possible side effects. The most common ones are nausea, constipation, and abdominal pain.
Doing my second shot of Mounjaro.
Heather Winterstein lost 92 pounds over 11 months, and that's not all.
It not only changed my weight, but it literally changed my health. I mean, going from having super high blood pressure, high cholesterol, being on 4 different medications for both of those conditions, also being pre-diabetic.
Research shows Ozempic and Wegovy lower the risk of death from heart attack or stroke by 20% after 3 years.
We're working with payers and insurance companies and employers, who are often the people who pay for medicines, to make sure they cover it for their patients, for their employees and their customers who are patients, so that they don't have to pay out of pocket. That's our goal.
I just hope that insurance companies catch up really quickly, because this is absolutely life-changing medication.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Potentially good news for those who are looking to get rid of those unwanted extra pounds. Coming up, we've got an encouraging word for your day ahead. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning, the CBN News Quick Start Podcast. Each weekday morning at 7 a.m., get quick highlights of the day's important news. Then an in-depth analysis that goes beyond the headlines. Insights that matter to people of faith. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Find the CBN News Quick Start Podcast on iTunes or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts, because truth matters.
Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is lesson. Know this: in God there is no failure. Everything you face is a blessing or a lesson. In blessings, bless others. In lessons, teach others. You're not here just for you. You're here for others, to show them Christ, to show them His word in action, to show them His love beyond measure. With that word, make this a wonderful Wednesday. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com, and you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.